Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy,
And I'm Diva.
and this is Twisted Listers, a podcast about murder.
And Bliss.
And this is a new list. Speaking of lists, this
And we're
is.
kind of back on schedule-ish, too, which is nice.
What is a schedule? Who are we? What is the world?
We're slightly more timely.
We are, for now.
Yeah.
We keep you guys on your toes. You never know when it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
How we like to roll.
Yes.
Keeps it exciting. Yeah. This is a new list. This is murders inspired by horror movies, or
Yes.
in some cases, horror shows.
Horror shows.
So,
yes.
real horror show. All right. Yeah, this is an exciting one. I am enjoying researching. I feel like we've been choosing some really good topics lately. Because listen, now that we've already got past the topics that were a nightmare to research, I'm going to say that sometimes we pick a topic and about an hour into the research, I'm like, well, fuck. This week's going to be like pulling teeth. It's just, they're not as exciting. The stories, I feel like we tell them in a way that is exciting, but sometimes researching some of these can be shitty. This week is not shitty. This week is awesome. So very excited for that. Just to keep it real with y'all, like we do. Anything new? Anything exciting?
No, just yawning over here, getting ready to talk about some. It's horror movie season. It's my husband and I watch horror movies all year long, but we kind of make a point of like September 1. There's like nothing else on that we watch. That's all we do. So
horror
we have like
movies only.
We have like a rigorous system where we trade off, and then there's lists and there's like thematic groupings, and then like it's very elaborate.
What's the most recent one that you did or watched?
What was the last horror movie we watched? I don't remember. Oh, we watched It last night. The clown
original
movie.
Or new one?
Oh, the new one, of course. I mean, Tim Curry's great, but that shit's like 5 hours long.
It is really long. I really enjoyed the first half of it because they did break it into two of the original. I didn't love the second half. The first half felt it had like Stand By Me vibes, but like a little horror scary.
The new ones?
Of the old one.
Oh, yeah.
The new one I feel like was a little bit more like to the point, but I actually really thought the first It captured the nostalgia that Stephen King is so good at creating in his novels, and then it just mixed in like the perfect amount of horror, and the way that the first half ended was great too in the original movies. The new movies are good too. They are. I like them. But I'm a sucker for the OG.
My husband worships like Pennywise, Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise, like a god. Like he's sacred in this house. He's incredible.
He's really good. No, he's really good.
He's phenomenal. He's phenomenal. Like I really you got to judge it by the Pennywise. And Tim Curry's also phenomenal. Totally different.
Totally different. But you can't touch Tim Curry. Anybody who has a problem with Tim Curry has a problem with me. Okay,
no,
like he's the
but
shit.
Bill Skarsgård did good because he didn't try to emulate Tim Curry. He just did his own thing entirely.
He did, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm not like the new ones. Like I'm kind of like a hater. Like I love to like hate on new things because I don't like change. It's really hard for me. But the remakes of the It movies were really good. So I will say that. Yeah.
We love a killer clown, and we also love Art the Clown in this household. It's my husband's other hero.
If I see you one more time and don't give you your Art the Clown pins that I bought you, I'm gonna fucking slap myself in the face.
We love him. There's gonna be a Terrifier 3, everybody. I know you're excited.
I am. That we are going to see together no matter what. No matter fucking what, we have to.
Yes.
Movies are great, you guys. But anyway, okay, speaking of, since I'm glad that we are segueing using horror movies into this topic. You chose, so I go first, right?
Yes.
Are you ready? Are you ready for this?
I am.
Okay. Good. Because whether or not you are, I'm going to start. All right. This is the Dexter murder. Woo! Which is why I said horror shows. That's why I threw that in there. I wanted to note the dates that this took place around October 10th, 2008. So, in addition to being Halloweeny in theme, it is also Halloweeny in timing. Just like my
Mhm.
last case when the guy murdered somebody on October 11th and then confessed to it on October 12th. So, we're keeping it all around like the second week of October, which I find really interesting. So,
Perfect. And mine is also a Halloweentime murder.
oh, awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so for me, the story starts in 2008 with a couple walking in Mill Woods, which is a suburb of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, in
Mhm.
early October. Like I said, they are taking an evening stroll and they're approached by a man who looks like he's just been in a fight. He tells the couple that he's been attacked, and as he's telling them this, a man in a black and gold hockey mask with the mouth cut out approaches him. This
Okay.
man seems to stutter and sort of like freeze when he sees like the couple, but then he says, "Come on, friend, come back to the garage with me," as though the two men are
Mm.
like besties. This
Okay.
the supposed attacker in this weird ass mask then walks back towards the garage like, from where he came, and the other man starts to follow him. The couple, confused, walks away, seeing the two
Yeah.
men headed back towards the garage, and that's it.
Okay.
Now we're going to talk about Johnny Altinger. He was 38 years old in 2008. He was living and working in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, also. Super nerdy, but a really great guy. All of his friends love him. They think he's just like the nicest and most sincerely sweet and lovely man. But again, very nerdy. Like to the point where his friends were actually suspicious when he told them that a really pretty woman he met online wanted to meet him for a date.
Oh,
Like,
that's mean.
I know it sounds bad, but like it is what it is. He was a really
Yeah.
rad guy, definitely deserving of a great girlfriend and a lot of love. But as far
Yeah.
as like he just looking at him, I'm sorry, but he's not like a lady killer. He's just not.
Right. Right.
Like he and the woman that he was going to meet for a date were in very different leagues. And that is
Okay.
fine because if you met Johnny, maybe you would fall madly in love with him because you like
Yeah,
really
people can
bad
have
guys,
charisma and people can have, personality.
really good hearts that make them
Yes. Yes.
lovable, which is absolutely the most important thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, this woman Jen was this beautiful brunette, really gorgeous, and apparently very into Johnny, despite ever only chatting online via the dating site Plenty of Fish. So they met on Plenty of Fish and immediately hit it off very quickly and set up a date almost immediately. Despite
Okay.
their suspicions, Johnny's friends are super happy for him because, again, they want him to find love. And Johnny sets a date with his mystery woman, uh, and the date is set for Friday, October 10th. And I think they met online just a few days before. And again, Johnny's so excited, he's telling everyone. And I think that he maybe even had plans with his friends that night, but canceled them. But he definitely had plans with a friend on Sunday. So he had the date on Friday, he had plans on Sunday. So
Okay.
around 6:30 p.m. on Friday, October 10th, he calls his friend Dale, the one he has plans with for Sunday, and he says, "Hey, this is weird. But, this or actually he tells him this before. He says, "Well, it's kind of weird. The woman didn't give me an address. She just kind of gave me directions where to go." And Dale's like, "Can you give me those? Can you send me those directions? Because this seems really fucking weird." Johnny's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, no problem." So he sends him the directions. And then at 6:30 that night, he calls Dale again and he says, "Hey, this again is weird, but the address that she sent me to is just a garage. And there's a guy here making a horror movie, but Jen's not here." So Dale's like, "Okay, that's weird. Thanks for letting me know." And Johnny's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna hang out for a little while and then maybe just go home." About an hour later, Dale receives an email from Johnny saying that the woman arrived home and they are in fact going on their date.
Okay.
So kind of weird. The same night, around that same time, um, a bunch of other friends start receiving. Oh, no, no, no. I'm sorry. I have the timing wrong. Anyway, pardon me. I got off track there for a second. So the next day, or just a little while later, his friends get an email from Johnny, and it says, um, you know, this Jen is wonderful. She's like whisked me off my feet or whatever, that swept me off my feet, and she's whisking me away to Costa Rica. Now, the same
Okay.
day that Johnny's friends get this email, Johnny's boss also receives a letter of resignation from him via email. And now Johnny's boss emails him back asking him where to send his last check, but doesn't hear back, which he finds really fucking strange. Now, it takes only, I think, about a day for his friends to sort of say, like, fuck this. This is very weird and not like Johnny. So they go to his apartment looking for him. So
Yeah.
Dale and some of his friends go. They start looking for Johnny. They find the car is gone. Nobody's in his apartment. And they're like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so in this email that Johnny sent, it says, we're going to Europe. We're in love, yada, yada. I won't be back until December 10th, but I'll
Okay.
send you Jen's phone number soon. Dale is like, this is really fucking weird. Not only does this not sound like Johnny to just fucking take off for 2 months, just with a woman he met that night, but also the email that he sent doesn't sound like him either. So
Yeah.
apparently Johnny would like sign with like a joke at the end of his email or a smiley face. He had nicknames for a lot of his friends that he didn't use. So apparently he didn't send like a mass email. He sent them out to like everybody individually. So a lot of people came forward and they were like, Johnny always calls me like, I forget what it was. It was like a woman that he was interested in. He always called her like Buttercup or something. And he
Okay.
didn't in this email. And this is literally like the only time he's not used that
It's
in
missing
the
all his
email.
little signature goofy things.
Exactly. So not only does this not sound like something that he would do, but it literally doesn't sound like him. Right. So again, the friends are like, where's Johnny? What is going on? But very quickly, this changes because Johnny, who's always been very computer savvy, like to the point where he was one of the early users of the internet and even pre internet communication, like that I won't even try to explain or understand, but basically, like back when computers would actually communicate using like the sounds of fax machines, like he was
Okay.
one of the
Yeah,
people
yeah.
doing that. But now his friends suddenly see him posting all over social media. So Johnny's back and he's fully, on the internet, doing social media stuff. He's changing his usernames, deleting some profiles,
Mm,
adding updates to others. So it's like this
a
whole
lot
big
of stuff.
fucking thing. Lot of
Yeah.
action. So at very first, people are relieved, but then they start to feel even more confused and worried because what's really problematic about this is that nobody has actually spoken directly to Johnny. So they
Okay.
have all of this like vague social media updates that make it seem like he's around. They have this weird email from him saying he's going to be gone for 2 months, but nobody has actually spoken to Johnny. Now,
Okay.
this is obviously, for obvious reasons, not good. So Dale calls the police. I think he actually had already called the police, but the police were like, he's a grown man. He sent you an email telling you where he is. Like, what is the problem, right?
Yeah.
So Dale calls the police again, and they agree to send a cop to his house, but the cops never come. So the cops are like still not believing that anything's wrong. They're like, it's been like 3 days. He's online. Like, what? Like, stop. Like, there's nothing to be worried about.
Yeah.
So finally, Dale, the true hero of this story, goes to Johnny's house and he finds an open window and he climbs in. Inside, he finds Johnny's house in a sort of like, I wouldn't say a state of disarray by any means, but not how you would leave your house if you were planning to be gone for 2 months. Like,
Right.
there's food that's going to expire in the fridge, there's dirty dishes in the sink, you know.
Yeah.
But probably more concerning is the fact that everything he owns is still at the house, including his luggage. And
Hmm.
here's the real kicker. His fucking passport is in the house.
Yeah, he's not going on not too many trips.
No. How are you going to be in Costa Rica if you don't have your
No,
passport?
you're
Right.
not.
No. So now Dale calls the police again and he tells them what he found. And finally, they start to take him seriously because he has mountains of fucking evidence, including emails saying, that Johnny's in Costa Rica while Dale has his passport in his hand. Right. And luckily, like I said, Johnny had sent the directions to the garage to Dale. And the
Hmm.
police, once they finally start looking into things, he hands those over to the police. So now police are looking very much into this. Before they get the directions to that garage, they're still sort of working on the assumption that he's left on his own to go on vacation. So they're basically like now willing to disprove their theory that he's gone on vacation. So they're not looking into this like it's a homicide, but they're like, fine, we'll do a little bit of digging. And if for any reason it doesn't come up with what we expect, we'll go from there. So
Yeah.
they start looking for his car. One of the first things they do is they start calling airlines, um, looking to see, like, did he book a flight out? Is his car parked at an airport? Like, where may he have gone to travel?
Yeah.
And pretty quickly, they find that he didn't take a flight. His car's nowhere to be found. So now they're like, okay, this is a little fishy. They start calling all of his friends. Many of them all say the same thing. The last time that they actually spoke with him was October 10th. Now, they all say, yeah, we got this weird fucking email from him, but every single person he sent it to said it was really weird. We don't think it's from him. Like every single one. So the
Yeah.
only thing police have is that Johnny last spoke to people as Johnny October 10th. And this is what starts getting the police to believe something bad happened to him. Because not only is it Dale now, but it's everybody that knows Johnny. So it's now been about a
Okay.
week since Johnny went missing. And finally, the police go to this garage following these weird directions. And they find the garage and they start talking to the neighbors. And they find that there's a house that belongs with this garage, but it's rented by different tenants. So the house has tenants, the garage has a tenant. And neither of these people are a woman named Jen. So now they're like, okay, no Jen here. Whoever told Johnny to come to this address, not Jen.
Okay.
So we're starting to piece it together. They
Got
do
you.
find out that a man named Mark Twitchell rents the garage. So they give Mark here a call. They find out Mark is super nice, really chill dude, super friendly. And they find out he's a filmmaker. He's had very moderate success. So not doing great, but
Very
he's
moderate.
very modern. I'm being generous.
Yeah.
But he's cooperative with the police and seems very friendly. He says he doesn't know anybody named Jen. He doesn't know anything about the missing man, which, if you remember, here's our first little callback. It's weird that he says he doesn't know anything about the missing man because Johnny called Dale and told him he met a filmmaker who was renting the garage.
Hmm.
Now, whether or not
Okay.
police know this or put this together at this point, I don't know. But police do ask if they can enter the garage. And Mark says, sure, I'll come down there and let you in. Now, when they approach the garage, Mark says the lock on the garage isn't his. He's like, whoa, what is that? Like, that's not my lock. And this lock isn't even on the right way. So the cops don't even have to remove it to open the door to the garage. So
Wow.
it's like, and Mark's just like, whoa, who did that? That's so
Some
weird. And the cops,
strange person put a lock on my door.
yeah. And the cops are like, oh, that is weird. But he lets him in. So, and the cops step in and they're like, whoa, dude, it smells terrible in here. It smells like something was burning. And there's
Mm-hmm.
also a ton of cleaning supplies. There's a receipt on the table for a ton of cleaning supplies. And Mark is like, oh yeah, we were filming a horror movie in here. So we used a lot of sticky blood, like fake blood. You have to clean it up right away or it's going to stain. I wanted to get my cleaning deposit back, so I had to clean it up. I had to buy all of this stuff because otherwise, I would have been charged or whatever. The cops are kind of like, okay, that makes sense. Because actually it does. I mean, if you really think about it, like if nothing else weird had gone on here, that would have been a perfectly valid explanation. You know,
Yeah.
that shit's like Caro syrup and fucking food dye. You will never get that out of any porous surface once you put it on. Have you ever
No.
used fake blood for like Halloween?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's
It
on
is
your face
very gross. And even when you try to clean it off, you can kind of feel where it was. Like it's kind of like
and you can see
it's
it. It like
gross.
stings you.
Yes.
It's so fucked
Yes.
up. So, and the cops are like, well, there's not anything in this garage on like first look. They're not doing like a deep dive into the garage. They're just looking around and
Right.
everything seems fine. So they're like, oh, Mark, will you come to the station and just make an official statement? And he's like, hell yeah. So he goes on down, Mr. Super Nice Mark, and the cops learn a little bit about him. And I'll tell you some of what they learned as well as a little extra. So Mark here was a 29-year-old married father to an 8-month-old baby girl.
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, he had an 8-month-old baby girl. And he and his family lived near the garage, but more on the outskirts of town. He was a filmmaker, like I said, in heavy quotes on filmmaker, but made most of his
Aspiring
money aspiring.
filmmaker.
Well, in
Yes.
his mind, he was there, but in everybody else's mind, who the fuck is
He
this
was
guy?
aspiring. Yeah.
Yes. He made most of his money selling Star Wars memorabilia, which he did to
Hmm.
make ends meet because, again, not exactly a successful filmmaker. He
Right.
did go to school for film, and he loved
Okay.
Star Wars so much that he made a fan film about the series. And this is crazy. I don't know if
Mm.
you knew this. He actually got the guy who played Boba Fett to make a cameo in this movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
fun.
So a modicum of success right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had also previously been married and lived in the US in Illinois for a while, but it didn't work out. So he came back to Canada in 2004. So he was super obsessed with movies and television, which always kind of worries me when somebody like bases their personality on other people's creative
Yes.
writing and, ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't love that. But anyway, police let
No.
Mark go. They're
At
like,
the very least, you're an obnoxious person.
yeah, at the least, you're just like the worst.
Yeah.
But the worst has like kind of a range.
Yes.
So they let him go. They're like, it's really weird that he has this horror set right where Johnny went missing, but he has all the proof that he was making a horror film. So Um, and just to talk about this horror film for a minute, this shit is super derivative. So to
Hmm.
just talk about the shitty film that this idiot is making, it's basically the show Dexter, which if you did you ever watch Dexter?
Weirdly, I feel like I only ever watched it with you in college, but I never actually like committed to
I
watching the whole
forgot
thing.
we watched it together. Oh my god, I
But
fucking loved it so much.
I really have like been meaning to sit down and like commit to watching it. Although I know the ending sucks. Everyone has kind of told
The
me.
fucking worst. But here's the thing, not only does the ending suck, but I feel like almost every like after the John Lithgow season, it just went way downhill. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna put it out there. You can agree or not agree, people. I'm sorry, but that's my opinion. Jimmy Smits is the best, and he was in it for a season, and that season was okay. But I really do feel like it was on the decline, and after that, it just became not
Yeah.
very good. So
Okay.
anyway, Dexter is a Showtime show. Oh, I actually made a note with the weakest ending ever.
Oh,
But
that's
the
not true. Game of Thrones wins that title.
Right, which I'm rewatching right now, and I'm just gonna stop at like
No,
halfway through
yeah.
the
I
last
actually
season.
thought about that. I was like, I could rewatch it if I end after 7 and just pretend the last one didn't happen.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go, and that's what I'll be doing. So,
Yeah. Just be like, and they lived happily ever after.
yeah,
Just like
everybody's
make
great. Nobody went psycho. Everything's
yeah.
great. But anyway, so Dexter is a show about a serial killer who's lovable and redeemable because he only kills other murderers and bad guys.
Yes. Yes.
And it was originally a book, pretty interesting book, much darker book than series, even though the series is very dark. So anyway, this idiot Mark was like obsessed with these books and obsessed with this show. And basically
Mhm.
his horror film is about a man who murders, quote, bad guys. But all these bad guys do is cheat on their wives, which is like
Okay.
shitty. But you shouldn't
So
get murdered for that.
so it's a Dexter but lamer.
It's Dexter, but like nobody is gonna relate to this killer.
Yeah.
So he finds them by going online, listen to this, and luring them to meet with beautiful women. Once in his
Hmm.
clutches, these cheaters are tortured for their online passwords and then murdered. And he tells their
Okay.
friends and family that they are on vacation so that they don't worry. So the premise for this
Okay.
film, if you've been paying attention, you'll know that this bodes
Yes.
very poorly for Johnny.
So this just happened.
Yes, even though Johnny is not, in fact, a cheater or a bad guy.
Right. I'm like, he just went on a date. You're missing the part where he cheated.
So not only did Mark make Dexter less effective of a story by making him a less relatable and just more sinister and horrible character, but in his actual whatever's playing out here, we don't have a victim that's even a bad guy. So it's
No.
really just a thinly veiled excuse. So the cops are like, we're going to keep looking into Mark because
Yeah.
fucking duh. I mean, the cops, if anybody could fuck it up, it'd be the cops. But in this case, they caught the hint. So they find out all this weird shit about his movie and how closely it resembles what probably happened to poor Johnny. They then go back to Mark's garage. They can't get a search warrant, so they have to be careful. And they just straight up call Mark. They're like, fuck it, let's give it a shot. And Mark's like, yeah, you can come back into the garage, no worries. So as he lets them back into the garage, because he has to meet them there, he starts spinning this weird web of stories about his car being broken into, his house being burglarized while he wasn't home. Just kind of trying to say, like, some of my tools and things have been stolen out of my possession, like knives and duct tape and things are missing from my house. So
Yeah.
he's starting to kind of like try to make an excuse for why certain things of his might be found in certain situations. But then he says, this is the fucking dumbest shit I've ever heard. Are you ready for the dumbest shit you've ever
I'm
fucking heard?
ready. I'm ready.
He says that a few nights earlier, a stranger came up to him at a gas station and asked him if he wanted to buy a car. Just out of the blue, Mark's in his car at the gas station. The guy's like, hey, man in a car, you look like a man who needs a car. Would you like to buy mine? Now,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Great.
the man told Mark, so first of all, this car was a red Mazda hatchback. And can you guess what kind of car Johnny drove? If you had to guess, what would you say? A red Mazda hatchback? Are you going to say a red?
Yeah, that one.
That one. I saw your face. I was like, okay. This man had said, told Mark that he had met a woman who was taking him on a vacation out of town and that she was rich and he didn't need the car anymore. Mark allegedly gave this man $40 Canadian, and
Oh
this
my God.
super random man sold him his car.
I'm going on a
So,
vacation with my lady friend. Will you have this car, random stranger at the gas station?
yeah. So, very, very interesting. Now, this random stranger, it turns out, obviously, if you can't guess it, turns out to be Johnny's car. This random stranger who happened to get directions to Mark's house also randomly, separately, came upon him at a nearby gas station and offered him his car. So police are like, yeah, that totally happened. Why don't you come
Yeah.
to the station and make a little statement about this bullshit? And Mark is like, hell yeah, let's do it, because this psycho actually thinks that the police are buying his lies. This is how narcissistic and just fucking out of it this guy is that he's like, oh, hook, line, and sinker, I got him. Like, I'm in the clear.
Yeah.
So he goes and he starts tying all of these lies together. He said, whoever broke into his house maybe stole paper towels and knives and things. And it's just getting fucking ridiculous. So at this point, cops are like, fuck this. We're just going to tell him we know that he's involved. But he never breaks. He never breaks because
Really
this
committed
is,
to his dumb bullshit.
when you're this kind of psychopath, it's easy to just be like, nah, not going to break.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the cops have to let him go. But they finally get the okay to search his house and his car. Now, I don't know if the car that they're searching is the car he originally owned or Johnny's Mazda. But either way, they go to a judge and they tell the judge the story. And the judge is probably like, bro, that's the craziest shit I've ever heard. What a fucking moron. And he gives them the warrants. So now they go to his house. They find books on Costa Rica. Ding, ding, ding. But more interestingly, they find a black hockey mask with gold marks on one side and the mouth area cut out. Now, does that sound familiar to the beginning of the story?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And also on this mask, they find two tiny spots that look like blood. So now they go into Mark's car and they find even more evidence, including a list. And it's a list that he wrote himself of items to do that are super sus. Some of these items are ship phone while it's on. Whose phone? Whose phone? Use laptop for email. Kill room clean sweep. Yeah, I mean, the list goes on. It's all shit like, basically, here's what I need to do now that I've murdered somebody. But he leaves this in his fucking car. So this is weird and damning evidence. And the most damning evidence is that in the trunk, there is a bloody steak knife as well as large blood stains all over the trunk. They also find a laptop which they search, and they find a hidden file on this laptop that Mark had tried to delete. So he deleted it and thought, now it's gone, because he doesn't know anything about computers. And so the police take it to one of their tech guys. The tech guy opens this file and they find something called SK Confession, which is,
Oh my God. I remember this part. Okay. Yeah.
yes,
SK.
serial SK. This dude is super sneaky.
He's
You
so
would
cool.
never think that that would stand for serial killer confession. because this
No.
guy is just smarter than everyone. So in this file, Mark wrote a probably very slightly fictitious version of what he actually did to Johnny. It includes a lot of bullshit about himself as a serial killer, basically trying to make himself sound sexy and interesting instead of just like a murderous piece of shit. And actually, one of the ladies who later was like talking about the case said that she believes that Mark's motives were sexual because of the
Okay.
way, like, Johnny was planning for a date and Mark was planning for a murder. They were both primming and prepping and getting ready, primping and prepping and getting ready for this moment that to both of
Mm-hmm.
them was at least in some way intended to be sexual. So a very
Okay.
interesting kind of way of looking at this asshole. But anyway, it's basically a play by play of what happened, including how he felt about nearly getting caught, lying to his wife about his whereabouts, like all this crazy shit. He also, in this, just to really drive home what a fucking dickbag he is, laments how he broke up with his ex girlfriend. And he straight up, so he's like, he's married and has a young daughter, at home,
Yeah.
and he's pining for his ex.
Stupid.
He also, in this SK Confessions document, talks about how much he likes the show Dexter. So this guy is just like no original thought. He's just obsessed and stupid.
He's a dweeb. He's a dweeb.
Yes. So I'm going to read a pretty gnarly excerpt from this that's going to kind of give you an idea of what happened to Johnny, mostly
Okay.
because I've been kind of having fun talking shit about this guy and I wanted to bring it back to a very serious point
Right.
because this is not funny. This is fucking terrible and it needs to be kind of given the weight that it deserves. And I
Okay.
also just want to point out that like as much of a dork and a monster or an idiot as this guy is, he is like an absolute fucking evil psychopath monster.
Yeah.
So here's a quote. The room filled with the echo of the pipe crashing into the back of his skull as I could feel my predator self take over. That one single motion was the end all be all. I had committed now and there was no going back. It even doesn't even sound that bad because he's such an idiot. The jig
Yeah.
was up and it was kill or get arrested for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, maybe even attempted murder. I won't go to jail for an almost, but the son of a bitch didn't drop like the sack of potatoes I was expecting. Are you serious? I asked myself. I continued thwacking. He calls him Jim. Jim over the head repeatedly, but it only seemed to fuel his adrenaline too. He began screaming at the top of his lungs, police, 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 and I just about shat my pants. My fury doubled and I blasted him so hard, blood spattered everywhere, but primarily on me. He hit the floor but was still conscious. And then it goes on to describe Johnny begging for his life, offering money, saying, please stop hitting me. And then Mark hitting him more. And Johnny never losing consciousness, which is so fucked. And then Mark finally pulling out a knife and stabbing him in the stomach. And that is
Oh
when
my
Johnny
God.
finally dies. So it is absolutely fucking horrific.
It's
I do believe
disgusting.
that during that time, Johnny gives him all of the passwords for his computer, which is how Mark is able to post online because I think Mark basically said, give me your passwords and I'll stop. And he
So
did.
stupid and pointless and like
And
what a
sad.
ridiculous thing. Yeah, what a ridiculous last few moments to have.
I've been getting, I've been starting to like sort of put myself in like the situation of like the fear and the sadness that these people must be
Yeah.
feeling when this is happening to them. And it truly is like sickening. It's like sickening. It's really hard to fucking stomach. Um, so anyway, other horrifying excerpts talk about how he dismembered Johnny and then played with his skull like a dummy's head.
No.
Yeah, another just beyond
Which
depraved shit.
also may or may not have happened. He could just be trying to sound cool.
He
Like,
could, but this was also something that he wrote for himself and then tried to delete. So I'm inclined to
right.
believe it a bit more than the fictitious account that he had,
Right. Right. Right.
But it's hard because there's just layers of layers of fakeness with this man. So anyway, he also details the quote kill room, which he stole from Dexter, of course. He's got the clear plastic sheeting, the silver metal table, like all that shit. He then says he attempted to burn Johnny's body, which is where that smell came from. But when that
Yeah.
didn't work, he dumped him in a sewer. And as far as we know, his body has never been found.
Ugh, awful.
Yeah. So now police use this information to officially search the garage because they've only really looked at it with Mark inside at present. And they hit the payload. It has a Dexter-style kill kit, including masks, gloves, a large game processing kit, which is weird because Mark wasn't a hunter.
Right.
Everything they found was completely covered in blood. And blood spatter analysts said that somebody had been beaten to death in the room and that the weapon was a metal pipe wrapped in tape. And yes, they were. And yes, it was.
Okay.
Now they had what they needed. Mark was arrested and charged with murder and also attempted murder. And you might ask, why attempted murder if there was only one victim?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you remember how I started the story with the two men running out of the garage and up to a couple,
Yeah.
this attack was also written about in his SK Confessions case or file, so police figured this was real. So they used Mark's mask and put it on the news and asked the man who got away to come forward. A day or two later, a man named Gilles Tetreault came forward and basically recounted the same story told in Mark's confessions document.
Mm.
Now, Mark said he had met a beautiful blonde woman named Sheena online, and they had agreed to meet at her garage. When he arrived, he was attacked by a man in a mask, in a black mask with gold stripes on it and the mouth missing. And the man forced him to the ground with a gun after attempting to tase him with a faulty taser.
Okay.
Gilles decided he'd rather die fighting than blindfolded on the ground, so he got up and ripped the tape off his eyes and started to fight back. And at that point, he realized the gun was fake. So
That's
because of
badass.
that, yeah, I know. He's lucky. So at that point, he made a run for it. He rolled under the barely open garage door. And as he was doing this, Mark got a hold of his leg and pulled him back in. But
Mm.
Gilles rolled out again. This actually is like a horror movie.
It is a horror moment. Yeah.
And while the taser and the gun weren't working, Mark certainly had some knives that were very real. So Gilles takes off. He finds this couple. Mark follows him, mask still on. And the couple are like, what the fuck? And Mark doesn't know what to do. So he pretends that he's friends with this guy. And then he just kind of walks away. So now Gilles is sitting there with this couple who are like, what in the fuck is going on? His attacker has already retreated to the garage. So he starts walking back to the garage as well.
Mm.
The reason he did this, and that's why it looked like they were walking back together. But the reason he did
Right.
this is because his car was parked in front of the garage.
Mm. Oh
And
shit. Yeah.
yeah, and Mark hadn't actually done anything to him besides like try to pull him back. He didn't even hit him. He didn't stab him. It was a fake gun, seemingly fake taser. So Gilles is really confused. And he's like, I don't really know what his motive or what his, was he trying to rob me? Like, whatever. So he gets into his car in front of the garage, locks the doors, and drives away as fast as he can before Mark comes back out and tries it again. He did not report this to the police because he was embarrassed, because he felt like a sucker for like thinking he was going on a date.
Yeah.
But then when he saw that somebody else had died, he came forward. So this is
Right.
a bit
Yeah.
long. Sorry, I know I've been talking a long time. This went to trial, and the defense was this bullshit. Mark said that he was trying to scare people for real for the movie to record their responses. He said he did this to that Gilles guy and got that on film, but there was no film to show. And he also said he did this to Johnny, and Johnny got pissed and attacked him, and that he murdered Johnny in self-defense after fighting back when Johnny attacked him.
Okay. Wow.
Luckily,
Wow.
this story is clearly as stupid as every single other story he's come up with. And
Yeah.
the
He's not
jury was
great
like,
at the bullshit stories. He's
no,
not
he's
great.
not even a little bit good. So the jury found him guilty. They gave him 25 to life. In the end, he wasn't charged with the attempted murder because he's already in prison basically forever.
Right.
So he's still out there writing to people. Anytime somebody wants to do a story on him, he's more than willing to talk because again, he's a fucking narcissist,
Yes.
complete piece of shit. He's still
Yeah.
trying to say that the murder was in self-defense.
Oh my god.
To this day, he's still blaming Johnny. And he's been up for early release already, but has not been released, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Probably because of his lack of remorse and attempting to blame the victim. So
Yeah.
hopefully he will remain there.
Canada, you gotta say you're sorry. Sorry. You gotta say
Yeah,
you're
you gotta
sorry.
say, I'm sorry. I'm
You have
sorry.
to. Yeah,
Yeah,
to get out.
you do. And if you don't, then you're not ever going to get out, probably, unless you're Jasmine
Also,
Richardson, and who knows. Anyway, I always have to slip that in there.
and Carla Homolka.
And Carla Homolka. Yeah, you just have to say you're the victim in those cases. But
Yeah.
As of right now, he's already been up for early release and he is not out of prison. And let's hope he never gets out of prison because that guy is clearly,
He is bad news bears.
he will do it again.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh my
So there you
god.
go. But also, he's a
Also,
big idiot.
I was looking at pictures of him while you were talking, and I'm gonna use one for the Instagram post that's him dressed as Wolverine for a Halloween, and he
Oh my
looks like
God.
the dweebiest dweeb that's ever dweebed on the face of the earth.
I love
So
it. I love it.
I think
Thank
it's a good
you.
one to for the mocking tone we're trying to convey.
I appreciate that. I'm into it. Thank you. Thanks for the support. All right. Sorry, that one went long, but I told you I was gonna
Yeah,
have to editorialize a lot to talk about what a douchebag he was, so it took a little
it's okay.
longer.
It's worth it.
It is, right? All
Oh
right.
my
Who
god.
who you got?
Twitchell. Even the name kind of
Twitchell.
sounds like how gross he is.
Yeah,
Twitchell.
it does. It does.
Um Well, it's perfect because that you had a beefy one because mine's gonna be a little shorter
Okay.
than usual. There's not. It's one of those stories where, like, you find it and there's not like as much of a rich presence online about it, but it's just so wacky you gotta do it.
Yes, yes,
Like,
I
it's
completely
one of the.
understand.
It's one of those.
All
So
right.
this is the story of Mark Branch, or as some places have titled it, the Friday the 13th murder.
Oh
It was
Lord.
also just Friday the 13th a few days ago, and so I was researching this on Friday the 13th, and it was perfect.
Okay.
Um, so this happened in Greenfield, Massachusetts. It's a really small town at Halloweentime, 1988. So
Okay.
shortly before my birth in this
Oh
planet.
yeah. Yeah, right around. Oh.
So Mark Branch was 18 at this time. I also saw 19, but thereabouts.
Mhm.
He works as a grocery store clerk. And one of the main things we know about him is that he struggled with mental health issues already.
Oh.
At his young age, he had been in and out of multiple psychiatric facilities. It's
Oh.
unclear exactly what he had. There's no source that releases his diagnosis, and I think his parents have kept this and he kept this under wraps.
Oh, okay.
But something serious.
Yeah.
Um, 4 years earlier, when he was only, I guess, 14, he actually had to leave the private school that he attended 6 weeks into the school year to stay for a while at a psychiatric hospital in Boston. So that's gnarly if you're
Yeah.
14.
Yeah.
Um, and we'll hear more at the end. I'll talk a little bit about some of the behavior that could have been
Mhm.
facilitating these very uh, early teenage stays.
Mhm.
So he also reportedly mused to several people throughout his young life that he would like to kill someone and he wondered what it would be like to kill someone. So he was known to just say that casually.
He was just straight
Um,
up.
yeah, just talked about that. Um, he was also, the other thing we know about him is that he was really obsessed with horror movies, and as I mentioned in the beginning, so am I. So I really can't
Yep.
judge on this
No,
front.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah.
But you can,
Uh,
because I also love Dexter, and I judge the fuck out of that Twitchell idiot.
Yeah, yeah, it's what you do with it. It's what you do with your
It is.
interests, you know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was obsessed with horror movies, but especially kind of like cheesy slasher movies. An employee of the local video rental store. That's a place that used to exist. If you're like a Gen Zer listening,
Oh,
just like
I used to have friends that
Google
worked
it.
at them. I had a friend that was like a metalhead
Ugh,
guy, like gothy dork. He was the fucking coolest dude, and he worked at like a really tiny one. It was like the size of my bedroom, and it was a video store, and it was the fucking
it's
best.
one of the number one things I'm old person nostalgic
I
about. I'm like,
know. I
they're so good.
know. They are.
Um,
Ugh,
just like the ability to browse too,
I
like just like
know. And like
physically.
argue about what you're gonna watch with
Mm-hmm.
somebody, and like yeah,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
So good.
The youth will
Um,
never know.
so his video rental store guy described Mark's taste in movies as follows: "Quote: He rented strictly gore. Period. The gorier, the better." Which sounds
Oh,
exactly like my husband's taste in horror movies. So,
yeah, that's
um,
true. That's true.
if it's a slow psychological thriller, he is not fucking interested. Um, Absolutely not.
He's an escapism guy. He doesn't want to have to
Yeah.
think about it. I feel
No,
that.
blood and guts. Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah, I
think,
feel that.
yeah. So boop, 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 boop. Just going to talk about someone else, very random, kind of peripherally in Mark Branch's life here. One Sharon Gregory.
Okay.
She attends Greenfield Community College, I think with Mark. So there's a couple of big holes in this that I'm just going to like fill in with my own speculation.
Okay.
Because how the fuck else did they know each other?
Right.
As part of her classwork as a psychology major, she decides to write a psychological profile on Mark, and this whole thing is a little
Oh.
muddy here. But basically, in the court documents, they talk about how they were acquainted somewhat, like well enough, for I think through class,
For her to well enough
and
for her to profile him. That's pretty gnarly.
and Sharon was fascinated that he was obsessed with horror movies, and so wanted to write about that aspect, the horror movie obsession, for her class. And so it's like kind of a weird move, like, hey,
Yeah.
um, in some documents it does say that he gave her permission to, and like that was
Okay.
okay. But then some, it's kind of comes off as like she's just profiling him, and he's like, please don't.
Right. I mean,
Who
also,
knows?
like, it's weird when you deal with consent and like people who may or may not be in control of all of their like faculties, you know? The idea
Right.
of consent with somebody who's not fully there is an
It,
interesting, you know.
exactly, and it's hard to know how much she knew what she was getting into here, or what.
Right.
But
Right.
that's what happened. That's what Sharon does. That's what,
Okay.
however that choice comes about.
For better or worse,
Um,
that's where we are. Okay.
yeah. So boop 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 boop. Fast forward to the night of October 24th. So it's Halloweeny times.
Yeah, it
Mark
really
Branch puts
is.
on one of his many. Oh, I forgot to mention. Sorry, he's not just into horror movies. He's very specifically obsessed with Friday the 13th, which
Oh,
several installments had already come out by this point.
yeah.
And he's really idolizes Jason Voorhees, who is, of course, the iconic hockey mask wearing, machete wielding killer from the series. I almost said hero. I was like, that's not right.
No, it's really interesting to idolize like a basically like a human swamp monster.
Yeah,
Like it's pretty interesting,
yeah,
you
he is
know.
swampy.
He is. He like comes out of the damn swamp.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like, part of me has a soft spot for Jason. Like, he's sweet.
Is
Um,
he? He kills all
yeah,
those teens for having sex. So
yeah, that's true. That is lame.
there's an
But I don't
allegory
know.
in there somewhere. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah. But so he's really into Jason. So anyway,
Okay.
this night, October 24th, he puts on one of his Jason hockey masks, and he puts on a little bit of a Jason costume, kind of like the black outfit with black boots.
Hmm.
It's a low effort costume, but he's got the mask.
Yeah.
He then heads out to Sharon's house because he was apparently, Mark was very fucking mad that she wrote a psychological profile on him, and he's gonna do a Friday the 13th to her.
Wow. Okay.
That's what we're
So
doing.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't know exactly what happens next, but what we do know is that Sharon's twin sister Cheryl, who lives with her, this is Cheryl's family home. It's not like she's living on her own yet.
So
But she
Sharon and
just,
Cheryl.
yes,
All right, parents. Okay, go on.
those are the twins. So Cheryl finds her twin sister Sharon's body in their bathroom. She had been severely mutilated by what is described as many, many, many stab wounds to her head, chest, and abdomen, and her throat had been slashed.
Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Oof.
So, because Cheryl apparently said that Sharon was actively concerned over and creeped out by Mark at this time. So I don't know what the exchange was, or if he was like, I don't like that fucking profile, or he kind of, I think he must have said some shit,
Yeah, and
or done some shit too.
he wasn't keeping it like on the DL how he felt. Like this is pretty open and
Yes.
out
Yes.
there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so Sharon had expressed concern about it, so Mark is immediately flagged as a suspect, as like pretty much the only person who would have had beef with
Yeah.
Sharon.
That makes sense.
Um, so they look around and quickly find his car covered in blood, presumably from him, getting covered in Sharon's blood,
Yeah.
and abandoned near the woods in a nearby town.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
he doesn't seem to be going for like, this he's not going the sneaky route here. He's not trying to like keep this under wraps.
no. But they search the woods and Mark is nowhere to be found. So they're like, where did he go? Did he just ditch his car, right?
Right.
So the local news breaks the story of the Friday the 13th murder, and everyone is super, super freaked out. People think
Yeah.
there's a Jason on the loose, just slashing fucking willy nilly. This is also the peak of like satanic panic times. So like
Right.
every other article is like, was it a satanic cult? Like
Yeah.
da
It
da da
probably
da.
was. Like, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
The town of Greenfield canceled many of their Halloween activities because he still hadn't been found. They made everyone trick or treat in the afternoon.
Ooh. That's
Rude.
ugly. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fucked
super
up.
rude. They canceled the Halloween parade. They postponed the local release of Halloween 4, which is all very rude
Which
behavior.
also, like, they probably were blaming, like, I'm surprised they weren't blaming Halloween. Because, like, the mask
Mm.
and the butcher
But if it's
knife.
a hockey mask, it's quite clear. Yeah.
Yeah, but did anybody see him in it at this point?
Well, I think it was established that we're in fear of
A
Mark
man
Branch,
in
and
a
he is obsessed with Jason Voorhees. So
Okay, okay, so they're
yeah,
making the connection here. Okay,
yeah, they're putting it all together.
gotcha.
There are people specifically scared of a Jason running around.
Okay, which is
People
interesting
are.
because while you were telling me about this, I was thinking like this sounds like Michael Myers. Like this sounds more like Halloween than it does like Friday
It
the
does.
13th to me.
It does because Jason kills teens having sex in cabins. He doesn't kill people in there. No, he does go into some houses sometimes.
Sometimes but Michael Myers is like he's not exclusively like, we have
He's
Halloween
more of a
2
home
with like
invader.
but he is, and he had a specific person that he was going after, and it's like always
Yes,
people he's related to and shit. So it's like
targeted
people he
people.
knows. Yeah, it's targeted.
Hmm.
So it feels much more Halloweeny to me. Just like
Yeah,
just saying.
Jason is a little more random. That's true. Although he
It is.
does, Jason goes into houses and makes a point of killing the lady survivor from the past movie at the beginning of every movie.
Yeah, that's so
So
fucked up. Whoever
every
thought
time,
of that is like a clever but evil
every
genius.
time, yeah.
Yeah.
So people are like locking their doors and windows, or saying, "Oh, my kids can't sleep." Everyone's terrified in a fucking late '80s style
Yeah.
frenzy, thinking there's a Jason running around. Right?
Right.
There's reported sightings of Mark Branch in his Jason costume around town and around the county, tons of them. But are these other people in costume, or people just like also just freaking out, or people
I
just full of
mean,
shit?
the time of year, it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah. Tensions, and they were also anxious to have any of these events because they were scared that like other Jasons were going to show up, right, and cause like a frenzy.
Right. Right.
It's a very common costume, I imagine, especially then.
Yeah.
So tensions were so high that in a neighboring Massachusetts town, a huge manhunt with police dogs was initiated after one such supposed sighting. So it's like
Oh
really
my
over the top.
god. Yeah.
So there was one sighting of a man who fit Mark's description who also broke into a house and stole survival gear. So people are like, oh, is he going on the run? Is he going to do a survival in the woods thing?
Yeah.
But Halloween comes and goes. There's no more Jason Voorhees slaughtering. Nothing
Hmm.
happens despite all the frenzy.
Okay.
And this ends with a big ol' womp womp of, well, I mean, in a good way that there's no slaughter, but it's a depressing ending. Later in
Hmm.
November, so over a month later, or about a month later, a hunter in the nearby woods actually discovers Mark's body hanging from a tree.
Whoa.
So this is a murder suicide, presumably, and he killed himself
Hmm.
shortly after murdering Sharon. And his body was pretty decomposed enough to think that that could have been from around that time.
Yeah.
So, despite the case being kind of cut and dry, murder suicide,
That's it. Yeah.
local media continued to freak out over Mark's obsession with horror movies and sensationalize
God.
it. They did the classic thing where they used a killer's actions to like demonize the media that they consumed and like blame it on, oh, these horror movies are turning our kids evil, and
Right.
do all that, right?
Yeah.
There was also, interestingly, a lot of conspiracy theories that he didn't really kill himself, and that he was actually, and this is straight out of a horror movie script, that he was hung by a crowd of vigilantes seeking justice for Sharon. So they hung him up in the tree.
I mean, it's not that far-fetched considering, like, the reaction at the time. Like, it's a little Stephen
Yeah.
King-y, but, like, I don't hate it, and I don't think it's completely unreasonable.
Yeah, as much as it does scream like urban legend, I'm like, well, there's no evidence to say that it happened, but there's also no evidence to say that it's impossible. I mean, the other thing, people have said that, oh, well, someone would have fessed up by now if they were part of it. And I'm like, no, I don't know. Did they have a Stephen King blood pact of silence? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
And also, I do find interesting that I haven't heard anyone say about this is that why didn't they find him in the first sweep through the woods if he killed himself right away?
yeah, I don't think he did. He was probably hanging out. Oh god, that was
Well,
a
yeah.
terrible no pun intended with that. Honestly, I just
Oh,
said it.
yeah.
He was probably hiding out. There we go.
Hmm.
And then killed
So maybe
himself.
he did, steal the survival stuff, make a go at like, maybe I'll do a woods thing, and then he was like, nah,
Yeah, like no,
yeah,
I'll just do this instead. Yeah,
yeah, that
totally
that
possible.
could be. But again, maybe they didn't find him because he was killed later. Who knows?
Yeah.
But like I said, he was decomposed, so he hadn't it wasn't recent.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Um,
I don't
these
know.
So the rumors are also fueled by the fact that the suicide ruling was at first tentative, and they have actually never released an official cause of death. So this whole story is very urban legendy, and even the fact that he was hanging from a tree is urban legendy. And if they haven't released the cause of death, that also implies that he could have been killed another way and then hung up
Yes,
from the
it
tree,
does.
fucking symbolically.
Right. Or yeah, I mean, oh wow. There's like endless options to that. That's creepy.
Yeah,
Why would they not just release I mean, maybe they don't have it. Maybe they don't know. And
they
that right
didn't
there is fucking
supposedly.
weird.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Uh,
Well,
yeah. So the whole case kind of feels like urban legend, half reality
it
itself.
does, yeah.
Um, as part of the sensationalized press coverage, also the media released a list of things they recovered from Mark Branch's house as evidence. So this is fun. 75, 75 slasher films, which great. 65 64 killer related books, horror movie memorabilia, 3 knives, a machete, which of course is Jason's like one of his signature things,
Yeah.
and 3 hockey masks. So we have like a repertoire of Jason looks.
I have every single thing on that list. Okay, I don't have 75. Well, I might. We have a lot of DVDs in the back. But I have one hockey mask and I don't have a machete. But everything else on that list is like not that
Okay.
exciting in a
We have
different
a machete in
context.
our house, so if got together, we could put this whole list together.
Yeah. So it's like I guess I was just saying that to point out that like this truly is like sensationalized and like the media running wild with this instead
Hmm.
of just being like I mean, yes, he was obsessed with Friday the 13th and then he did a similar killing. That's totally fair to draw that connection, but like, of course they're just gonna latch on to it and go buck wild?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it comes out that some stories about Mark from his high school days come out, and to what extent this is part of like an ever expanding urban legend about him as like the
Mhm.
Jason killer, or if they're legit, I'm not totally sure. But obviously, he's a dick to ladies because of his fucking behavior, his murder, right, of
Murder,
Sharon.
yeah, yeah.
So it's not impossible. But people spread a rumor that he basically anonymously called girls from his high school making obscene statements. And people have pointed out that this could be just lifted off of Black Christmas, the incredible 1974 slasher movie.
Oh, such a good
Where,
movie.
such a good movie. Do
Yeah, it
not watch
really is.
the remake; is horrifically bad.
Oh, really?
Do
Yeah.
not watch it; it's so bad.
Not surprising.
Original's great.
Yeah.
It's also said that he wrote women threatening notes detailing how he would murder them. One girl said he drew a knife on her. Another girl said
Whoa.
he threatened her by leaving a photo of her with a scalpel, like as a threat for her to find.
Jesus.
He also reportedly kept files on the different girls he was harassing. So some of this, at least some of it, may have been why he had to go stay in a psychiatric hospital, right?
Maybe. Yeah, that sounds
That
that
could
sounds right.
be what triggered that.
Yeah.
Interestingly, people have also pointed out that authorities never found the psychological profile that Sharon said she was going to write about Mark. So it's unclear if he took it and like disposed of it and like was ashamed, or
Yeah.
if she said she was going to write it and just didn't.
That is
So
that is interesting. I
yes,
wonder. Well, where would he have taken it though if he just like went into the woods,
just
you
burned it
know?
or something. I don't know. Maybe he
Maybe.
like really wanted to dispose of it, put it in the trash.
Yeah, I mean hanging yourself isn't exactly like a good way to like dispel whatever
Right.
rumors would get started from the profile, but
Right. Yeah.
he probably
But
wasn't thinking super clearly at the time.
yeah, that's the mysterious urban legendy weird ass fucking
Jason
story of Mark Branch.
inspired. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very
Wow.
Halloweeny.
Can I just point out that both of our killers are named Mark
Yeah. And there's
and
both of them involve a hockey mask.
October? And yeah, the parallels are endless. We love a
Yeah.
list. This is why lists are
Perfect.
so great. Well, that was a fucked up first set. Uh Thanks, Marks, for fucking giving us the fodder, I guess.
Hmm.
And thanks to
Yeah.
you guys for listening. We hope you're having a great Halloween season. I think we're gonna go to Boney Island soon. It's a natural history
Mm.
museum, so it's gonna be
Ooh.
fun. And
Nice.
go look at the Halloween lights in Burbank because there's so many good ones. Our yard's all set up. Maybe I should post it on Twisted Listers, my yard.
You
It's pretty
should.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll post
Yeah.
my one clown that lives outside my house.
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
have an
Do
evil
it.
clown.
I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, also you guys, Diva had her baby shower and it was Halloweeny themed and we all
Hmm.
dressed up and everybody was in costume and it was really fun. And my son went as Jason, actually. Jason
Oh, that's
Voorhees.
true.
So
That's true. He's
mhm,
got good taste.
he does. He does. And I
Has he
went
actually
as
seen those
old
movies, or
Greg,
does he
so
just know that it's cool?
no, we let him watch Violent Night because we didn't really think
Oh
about
yeah.
it because we're terrible parents. But we've decided to sort of like he's actually going through a thing right now where he's afraid of monsters, so he'll like sleep with his light
Mm,
on. So I'm trying to not feed into that because like when I was young, I was so fucking scared of Freddy Krueger that I seriously lost like so many nights sleep over it. Like, yeah.
aw.
So I'm
Well,
trying to
he's
like
just into Jason the outfit then for Halloween.
yeah, yeah. It's just weird because he used to not be afraid of anything. Like we would go to like haunted houses and he would be like laughing, even like last year. And now
Yeah,
this year he's like, "Hey, I'm afraid of
having a
monsters."
scared moment. Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm not trying to push him. I want him to get through it so we can get back to
yeah.
laughing. Because that was traumatizing for me as a kid. So,
Mm,
yeah. But anyway, that's what he was dressed up as. I was dressed up as old Greg, so that was
hmm.
interesting. There were a lot of good costumes there, and you look like a beautiful witch. I loved it.
Pregnant witch. Yeah.
That was the cutest dress.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, guys, that's enough of that. Enough chatty chat.
Mm,
We'll be back. Like, no fun, no talking, murder only.
no more chat. Yeah.
No more chat. We'll be back in a couple of days with the second set of stories. Weird movie inspired murders. And thanks everybody again for listening. Thanks for reviewing. Please continue to share us with all your friends and family and everybody you've ever met. And
Hmm.
until the next one,
Stay.
off our
Let's
stab 'em.